Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing, and today we've got another new shell that we haven't tried, and it's one that a couple of you guys have requested to see me test, and just so happens I picked up some the other day, so we're going to bring them out here and see what they can actually do. So as for those shells I brought out here today, I got out some of the Remington Express buckshot loads, but these ones are the 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch 12 pellet load of single lot buck, moving about 1275 feet per second, and we haven't tested any single lot buck so far. And if you don't know, single lot is just a touch smaller than double lot is. Double lot is 0.33 in diameter, so 33 cal, and single lot is 0.32, so 32 cal, just that little bit smaller than a double lot pellet. So we'll see what this single lot load can actually do for us, since here lately the express shells from Remington have been surprisingly good. So I expect to see something halfway decent out of these, especially since they are definitely a buffered load, and I'm hoping they have the wad in there as well, because the Remington shells that have the wad seem to do the best from my experience so far. So we'll see what these can give us. And as for the setup we're going to be running them through today, I brought out my Remington 870 special purpose with a 24-inch barrel and its stock full choke, and a full choke is what Remington recommends on the box. It says they can be fired through almost any choke, but a full choke is recommended. So that's where we're going to start with these, is the full choke in the 870 here. We should see something decent if these are decent shells, since we know this setup is generally a pretty good performer. But as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. I've got the big sheet of paper at 40 yards. I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity from the shells, and I've got the templates that we can lay up over our results when we go check those out as well. So let's get you guys to view this target, and we'll see what these Remington Express single lot buck shells can give us for a starting point out of the 870 with the full choke. Alright, so that round gave us 1275 through the chrono, which is actually dead on the money with the box claim at 1275, which is surprising considering we have a 24-inch barrel. I figured they would have tested it through like a 28 or a 30. But hey, it's actually nice to see Remington giving us real-world numbers on their box. So I'd say we're looking perfect up here for a velocity, but what kind of a pattern were they able to give us? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. For a reference, the white dot was my point of aim. The paper's 36 inches wide by about 44 inches tall or so, and we did have all 12 pellets on the paper at 40 yards. But right off the bat, it is definitely nothing to write home about. It's not the worst buckshot pattern we've seen by a long shot, but it is far from the best we've seen out of a Remington shell as well, without a doubt. Now, these are a buffered load, but they do not have a wad, which seems to make the big difference in a Remington shell here recently. Their basic buffered loads are much better than what they used to be a few years ago, but when they put a wad in them, it seems to really bring their performance out. But I guess what we saw here is somewhere in the middle. It's usable, it's not awful, but it's definitely nothing I would write home about either, that's for sure. We had kind of what started to look like a core right here just to the right of that white dot with those 7 pellets kind of in a circle right there. But then we had a few strings up there and a couple little stragglers off the bottom. So it looks to me like we had the start of a pretty decent pattern here, but it's just not quite the right combination. We're just going to have to try this through some other chokes. Maybe something like the Kicks butt kicker might really help these out. And we did have a 28-inch spread when I went to measure them as well. So 28 inches from the farthest 2 points across. Definitely not up there anywhere close to the top 10 that we've seen, but it's, I guess, good enough at the same time. But let's throw a couple templates up and get a little bit better of an idea of how it actually performed. Alright, so here's our 10-inch circle, and if we put it where our core of our pattern actually is, which is just a touch low and right, we would have technically had 5 out of the 12 pellets within a 10-inch circle, but a couple of them are right on that edge. So 5 or so pellets out of a 12 pellet load of single lot is plenty good enough to get the job done, but we've seen way better, and I think these shells might still have the potential to do better as well. But now let's throw up some actual animal templates and see what it would look like if you would have taken this particular shot out in the field. Alright, so first up here is our deer template, and if we roughly line this template up with where our shot placement would have been, we would have had somewhere in the ballpark of 8 pellets out of the 12 that would have actually hit him. And clearly, it's good enough to get you a deer with it. It's far from the best we've seen, but would it work on a deer hunt? Yes, it technically would. Now, me personally, I would like to see a little bit better out of it. Even if we don't have all 12 pellets that hit him, 8 is still plenty enough, but I wouldn't mind seeing them a little bit more evenly spread and condensed right through the vitals. But still, that's good enough to get you a deer with it. So we know we have a dead deer, but let's throw the hog template up as well just to take a peek at that. I think it's probably going to be pretty much the same story, but I've got the template, so we might as well look at it. And here's that hog template, and like I suspected, it's pretty much the same story, but you might have picked up a couple little flyers around the very edges of him. So good enough to have a dead hog here? Yes, but I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit better out of him at the same time. So overall here, I guess this is somewhere in the middle. Yeah, it is a starting point for us. This is the first test we've done with them, and I've got several other chokes that we're going to run them through, so we'll see what they can do. But at the same time, I was hoping to get a little bit better of a start out of them as well. I still definitely think we have a little bit more in the tank left that we can get out of these, but for the recommended full choke that's on the box, I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit better out of them personally. But I guess it's good enough to take out on a hunt the way it is, although I would still want to see it a little bit more condensed than that. So I guess the starting point is somewhere in the middle for these today. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that performance right there? It's kind of on the fence for me. I mean, is it usable? Sure. Is it what I would look for ideally? Probably not. But we still have several other chokes that we can try with these, so we'll see what we can actually get out of them, because something like the Kicks Butt Kicker might help these out just enough to get us that nice pattern we're looking for here. So we'll see what happens. But for a starting point, I'd say we're somewhere in the middle. So I guess leave all your thoughts down in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of the Remington Express shells lately, or the Express single-out buck? And if so, what kind of results have you seen out of them? And what other combinations or chokes or whatever might you want to see these shells run through? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.